Classes in session, hitting the books, college basketball edition of the show, Friday, December 27th. Ian Cameron and Connor Mack with you. And on these Friday shows, the rest of the college hoop season, we're going to have a huge, monster Saturday college basketball slates to preview and games to talk about. This ain't one of them. This is a very small Saturday slate compared to what we're going to have on Saturday starting next week. But just a few games just to whet the appetite for next week and beyond. But there are a couple of good games on this slate, though. Most of them non-conference games. The Mountain West is actually kind of takes the center stage here. We do have a big one with Gonzaga and UCLA. That is clearly the game of the day coming up tomorrow on Saturday. So we'll get into it. We'll begin, as always, with just a handful of marquee games to talk about. We'll start with Ole Miss and Memphis. This is actually a pretty good one. We've got Memphis, 1-point home favorites, 152 the total. This is in Memphis, FedEx Forum. This should be an interesting game. Obviously, the Memphis Tigers had a great run in Maui, a great start to the year, some really solid performances overall. Seen a couple hiccups, though, from Penny Hardaway's team of late, and we'll see if they can kind of turn things around here for this matchup against Ole Miss on their home floor. Memphis losing to Mississippi State right around this pick'em price range, 79-66, their last game, which was here at home. They also had the home loss as big favorites to Arkansas State. So while they do have some good wins, like beating Virginia on the road, beating Clemson, obviously on the road in overtime, also stubbed their toe a couple of times. We'll see if they can rebound from the loss. So you got that going for Memphis's favor here. They're off the loss to Mississippi State for this game. Meanwhile, Ole Miss, it's been a hell of a start to the year, 11-1. Their only loss was a 2-point loss to Purdue. I love the way they're playing defense right now. It's been very, very impressive at that end of the court. They obviously have the Murray, Dre Davis, Sean Padula trio that can light it up offensively for the Rebels. I got to admit, I like Ole Miss a little bit more defensively and just a little bit more overall as a team. I know it's Memphis at home in a pick-em price range off a loss. That certainly goes in their favor, but I still kind of feel the better overall team and certainly the better coach of these two teams. I'll take Beard, quite honestly, over Penny. So from an X's and O's and prep standpoint, I'd only look at Ole Miss here, getting 1.5 in this game. How do you feel, C-Mac, Ole Miss, Memphis?
The tough thing is Memphis off the loss.
Yep.
Here, I think it's a lot better for kind of a bounce back at home and maybe a loss for Ole Miss. And I love the guard play with Memphis, like we talked about. The defense still isn't there, and they've kind of been sloppy with the ball. Turnovers have been a little bit of a problem. I think they rank towards kind of the bottom. And that, I forget the real number. I think it's like 320 something, but they got to clear it up. But the talent usually just weighs out for them. So this one's kind of tough because I do think Ole Miss is the better team here, flat out. Just kind of a tough game early morning. I have to say, too, Ole Miss better defensively, but I still lean over. I know it's early tip and everything, but I think this could be a little bit light. I think this game more of, when they played Purdue, those were neutrals, but BYU, I think that game's a little more like this, even when Memphis played Auburn. I just think we kind of get that pace with these two teams, just are kind of more athletic, and it can get over this number. I thought it was just a little bit light, 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, I lean over too. I'm right there with you on that. All right, Utah State and San Diego State. We've got San Diego State 4-point favorites, 145 being the total in this game. This is a really good matchup. I mean, when it's all said and done, if you looked at the Mountain West Conference in college basketball coming into it, you would probably say that these are two of the teams that have a chance to contend to win it. And so that's what makes this a very, very good conference matchup here. Here's the thing with Utah State. Very, very impressive. There's no question. And what I like about Utah State is there's been some decent games, decent wins on the resume, beating Iowa, beating North Texas away from home. And, of course, very impressively taking care of St. Mary's in their last game, 75-68, winning outright as dogs, playing excellent defensively. I've been very impressed with what I've seen here from Utah State, really both ends of the floor. During this start to the year that they've had, 11-1. They will be tested here by San Diego State, no question about that. But you look at the 3 meetings last year between these two teams, Yes, San Diego State did win 2 of them in blowout fashion. Utah State did win on their home floor 68-63, but they look like they might be a notch or two even better than last year. Now, San Diego State's rolling in with a 5-game win streak, but and Houston was one of those victories, very impressive. And the losses, no shame in them. Gonzaga and Oregon, nothing at all wrong with losing to those 2 teams. They've won 4 in a row. This San Diego State Aztecs team. We'll see if that carries over here into this game. I think what's very interesting to note here going into this game, and it's something you always have to be mindful of, there is a bit of a gap in the free throw percentages. Utah State very good at the free throw line, a little bit more hit or miss for San Diego State. Does that carry over here into this one? Now, I know they got absolutely trounced last year, Utah State playing here at Viejas Arena, which has always been a solid venue for a home court for the Aztecs, but I don't know. I'm interested in 4 or better. I'm interested. You told me this was closer to pick 'em. Probably would have to lean San Diego State, but you're giving me a couple of possessions worth of points, 2 buckets worth with Utah State, getting 4 in this game. It wouldn't shock me if this is a 1-possession game. So I'm leaning to the Aggies here. Well, what are you thinking here, C-Mac? Utah State, San Diego State.
I get it. I was on Utah State against St. Mary's. I thought that was a great spot, even on the road after their loss. Yeah. I kind of feel that way. It's of course it's shorter here with 3.5. You talked about. I still think San Diego State has that great defense, and that's why with this total, I lean to this under, and this might be a play for me. Just because Utah State, I've seen them. They've been very efficient on offense, but and I think their defense is a little bit better. Even last year and a little bit this year. But San Diego State at home, the defense should be really, really good. And they're trying to get more guys a little bit deeper the San Diego State bench this year and get a few more guys in there. But Falls left. That guy's been good. He was good in that last game. I mean, he's had already a great year. I think they keep it close. I think it just, especially this number, I think this drops a little bit. A few of these games has kind of been back and forth a little bit the last few years, the total over and under. But I got to think it's kind of tight, especially around 145, 144.5. I think you got to look under here.
Not to mention, we've seen evidence of Utah State, which does want to play fast, but they've been slowed down by a couple of teams. The Wyoming game was a lower possession defensive game. North Texas was a lower possession defensive game. Both of them stayed under. And now in conference play, you might get this happening here. You can slow down Utah State, and San Diego State is certainly a team with their defensive chops under Dutcher, and they had this under Fisher too. They're capable of doing that. Here's a game that I think we could see points in, the opposite of what we just talked about. New Mexico and Colorado State. We've got New Mexico 1-point favorites on the road, 152 being the total in this game. First, on the surface, my first thought when I saw this is there's no doubt New Mexico. I like more what I see from them so far this year than I do Colorado State. And we had a nice win for them at home at the Pit against VCU in their last game. Meanwhile, you look, there's actually common opponent here as well. New Mexico beat VCU at home 78-71, and Colorado State lost to VCU 76-68. So there's a common opponent here. I mean, there was a win against TCU that did surprise me, and they did beat Nevada outright, but Nevada's kind of, fallen off or tailed off just a little bit from the great start they had. So I don't want to overreact to that. The fact remains, this is a very talented New Mexico team. Last year, they won 2 of the 3 meetings. They did lose here in Fort Collins, and I know Moby Arena, it's a solid home court, usually for Colorado State. They're 5-1 here this year. But I'm actually leaning to just the team that's just got the better talent, the difference makers offensively, and that's Donovan Dent and this great New Mexico backcourt, which just can absolutely take over a game late. I think that could end up proving to be the difference here. So usually in these price ranges, you get a game like this, I'm usually siding with the slight home dog. I actually think I'm going to be on New Mexico. I just think they're a better squad right now than Colorado State. They haven't played consistent basketball start to finish. I know with New Mexico, they've been an over machine, certainly of late. 5 of their last 6 line games have gone over the total. Colorado State's one of those teams where we have seen them get lit up on the defensive end at times, struggled against Colorado to get stops, struggled against Washington to get stops. Irvine, Ole Miss put 84 on them. So it's a high total of 152, but I think it goes over this number, and I think Colorado State's going to be challenged at the defensive end once again in this matchup. C-Mac, what do you think here? Lobos, Rams.
Yeah, this one's tough. But can we back the Rams here? The offense just hasn't been there, especially from three. They've been awful, 30%. And there's just not one guy that's a scorer. The past few years it was kind of the point guard Stevenson, very good for them. They just don't have a guy that can take over a game when they need a bucket, and I think they're really still kind of working on that. But I think New Mexico has a little bit of the edge with some of the scores you talked about. You hit on Dent and a few others. And New Mexico, I think, a little bit better offensively, even inside and out, 37%. They're a team not great from the free throw line. Still a little bit early. I think they're better than 67%. But yeah, this is tough. I can't take New Mexico, and I don't have enough conviction with Colorado State. I would love, Nevada, if this was 3.5 here at home. Yeah. Colorado State, that I'd move on them here because I just think it's a difficult place to play. And that defense in Mexico, I think's a bit better, but I don't know how trusted it is. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I think it's a little flawed.
Here we go again. People getting so hyped up early in the year as we go to our next game about Steve Alford here in Nevada, and now we're starting to see the not the bottom fall out, but we're clearly seeing that people overreacted a little bit too much to how strong Nevada was out of the gate. I mean, I know they whipped on Washington, who's not been great so far this year. They whipped on Sam Houston State, Weber State, Santa Clara, a lot of blowout wins. The win against VCU, Oklahoma State, but I never thought the team was that good. And now all of a sudden, here they are. They've lost 3 of their last 5. They get whipped by Washington State on their home floor. They lose outright as 8-point favorites at Loyola Marymount, which is a bad loss. And we just talked about this Colorado State team, which has had its struggles and ups and downs. They just beat Nevada 66-64 in Nevada's last game. So yeah, it's a bounce back spot for Nevada, yes. But how many years, doesn't matter how good or bad Wyoming is it tough to play in Laramie? Is it tough to win in Wyoming? And they show this year in and year out. Now, this is a Wyoming team that clearly, has faced a pretty light schedule, and we've seen some ugly games too, where they got absolutely destroyed by Texas Tech. They ended up obviously losing to South Dakota, which isn't a great loss. BYU, blows them out 68-49. Believe me, this is not a great Wyoming team by any stretch of the imagination. But I'll say this. I don't know if Nevada's a team I'm one bit interested in trusting as a 7-point road favorite. In fact, I know the answer is no. I don't trust them. And we know that Wyoming can get up for these games at home. I remember last year, Mountain West play. There'd be teams that were better than them in conference play. And here's Laramie taking the game, or in Laramie, here's Wyoming taking the game down to the wire, mucking it up, making it difficult, defending well. And that's one thing they always seem to do. They seem to always play hard on defense when they play at home. And that's what's kept them in games on this floor all these years. To me, this is just, I think there's something wrong with Nevada. They're definitely not, I don't want to say falling apart because it's a long season. And this is obviously important now, conference play. But I think they're definitely leveling off compared to the way they started the year. And one thing about Wyoming, they seem to stay in games when they play at home. So I'm grabbing all these points, and I'm taking the 7 here with Wyoming. C-Mac, what do you think here? Nevada, Wyoming.
5-0 at home. They haven't played anybody. But this is where I want them with this number. They're not the better team. And, to start the year, it's starting to pick up a little bit. The offense has been better. They were just playing slower, and the scoring wasn't there in some of these games for Wyoming. Nevada, their one thing, they don't take a ton of threes, but 41% has been really, really good, 5th in the country. When I was going through that earlier today, I thought that was a little bit high. But Nesbitt's been better. Newton, these are guys that at home, I think you can look to score. I think it'll be difficult. Nevada might go in there and get a win, but it is tough for them, and they haven't done it really too often. Last year they won at home. When was the last time? 2020, at least the last 7 years I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Where they won, and that was 73-68. Wyoming's catching 8 that day too. So yeah, these points here another.
I love the coach they hired too, Wyoming. Sundance Wicks, one of the best coaching names you'll ever hear. Let's do a little Sundance. Yeah. He did a great job at Green Bay with the Phoenix. He won a Rising League Coach of the Year there last year. I mean, that was a program that wasn't supposed to be really all that good, and they ended up, great in the third in the conference or something. That's a program that had really been sucking up the drain, the last few years. So he did a good coaching job there. It was a nice hire by Wyoming. And this is a team that, because the coach is really good, C-Mac, they're going to get better and better and better as the season goes on, Wyoming. And I actually trust him more than Alford. I don't think Alford's a great X's and O's guy, quite honestly. I'd never have thought that. Yeah, he can recruit. Yeah, he can bring in the talent. But I'm telling you what, there's some times where it looks like, what the hell are you doing, man, as far as adjustments and, coming out of a timeout, that's kind of stuff. I don't think he's no second coming of John Wooden in that category. I'll tell you that right now when it comes to Steve Alford.
There's not a lot, but yeah.
No. Yeah. But that's the point is, I think Sundance Wicks has done less with more with less than Steve Alford has. And so coaching, I think, matters in this kind of a matchup. All right, next up, we've got Gonzaga and UCLA. We've got Gonzaga 4-point favorites here, 147.5 the total in this game. I like UCLA as a dog, of course. I mean, this team, what more proof do you have to get from Mick Cronin's team? Just, they've answered every challenge so far. I like what I'm seeing from them, particularly on the defensive end of the court. We have seen it throughout the course of the season so far. It's been really, really impressive. I thought I know they had the North Carolina loss in the last game, but North Carolina made a hell of a bunch of really tough shots, whether it was RJ Davis, Trimble. They got 24 off the bench from Ian Jackson in that win as well. Where did that come from for North Carolina? But UCLA played well enough to win that game. And keep in mind, that was a long-ass trip. That was going all the way east to Madison Square Garden in New York City to play that game against North Carolina. Now you got UCLA off that loss. And, like I said, I don't think it was their defense falling apart, because keep in mind, 47% shooting. It was just the offense kind of bogged down, went a little cold.
All of a sudden, cold.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue at times for UCLA, because I don't think this is one of their absolute great offensive teams. But their defense, you're playing a team that can score, North Carolina, and they made some shots. And I thought a lot of them were contested shots, and hats off to them for that. But to me, I really was impressed with UCLA, even in defeat against North Carolina, if that makes any sense. And by the way, that was only their second loss of the year. So now you have UCLA off a tough loss like that. This game is in LA, by the way. It's at the Intuit Dome. It's not on campus. It's not at Pauley for UCLA, but it's at the Intuit Dome, home of the Clippers. So it is still in Los Angeles, which should provide decent home court edge for UCLA, although I'm sure Gonzaga fans, the Zags, will travel. They're a good traveling fan base now, one of the better ones. That being said, you got UCLA off a loss. You got them catching 4. And I know Gonzaga, with what they can do with obviously the inside-outside balance. And trust me, it's as good as it gets when you've got Ryan Nembhard, you got Khalif Battle, Michael Ajayi, you've got the big man that transferred over, Graham Ike, down low. I mean, you got great inside-outside balance. You can play the inside game. You can play the perimeter game if you're Gonzaga. And that's going to make it life difficult and challenging for UCLA. But you're going to give me UCLA +4. I'm going to take it most times, and I'm taking UCLA here plus the 4, coming off that North Carolina loss. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, they're going to have to shoot it well. And they were red hot, at least early on in that game. Well, definitely from 3, they shot 50%. But they have struggled from the free throw line, and that needs to tell. I think they shot 59% in that game. That might be higher.
Honestly, that was one of the big factors that cost them.
Kind of doinking those late, in that game. And all year, it hasn't been really, really good. Gonzaga, on the other hand, one of the teams always up there, is very, very good from the free throw line if this game is close. But UCLA is going to want to slow this down. They don't want to get up and down at all. But maybe this is kind of when I see Gonzaga totals in this range. I go over. Unless they really get tight. And that way it just stays under, and they'll be in the 60s. And that will probably just stay way under. But the way they play offensively, and the players they have, like you were talking about, inside out, man, I kind of think this game can go over. But we'll see if UCLA really dictates their slowdown slow pace. And yeah, it's so close to home. It is a neutral. I gotta lean UCLA too here. I'm worried about them having struggles offensively for stretches in those 4 to 5 minutes. Always drives me nuts. If you have money on a team and they go over 5 minutes without a bucket, man, there's nothing like that. But I lean their way. I think Gonzaga's still a little bit better, but are they almost 5 here? I don't think so. So I lean the Bruins too here, 4.5.
All right, Florida Gulf Coast and Richmond. We've got non-conference action here. We've got Richmond 2.5-point favorites, 138.5 being the total here in this game. Richmond's one of those teams that came into the year thinking, you know what, as much as I respect the job he's done there, he's been there forever, Chris Mooney, as the head coach here of this program. But I didn't feel like this was, last year there was some issues with the team. They went into massive droughts offensively throughout the course of last year. And I came into this year thinking, man, I'm concerned again about this team. Yet lately, they've been scoring a bit more, and defense has kind of, let them down. The Belmont loss, where, they scored well, the offense was fine, then they gave up too many. Same thing with the William and Mary loss. And I didn't even love the defensive performance against VMI, in their last game, even though they won 78-71. That was not an easy game, and it should have probably been easier for Richmond than it was. So, they failed to cover in 4 straight, 2-8 against the spread this year, Richmond. So you haven't been having a lot of success, backing this team. That is for sure. Florida Gulf Coast 4-8 on the season. They've certainly had ups and downs. 1-5 straight up on the road, so that is concerning. That being said, they played TCU, they've played Drake, they played Florida Atlantic, they played LSU, certainly some capable teams on that resume. And at this point in time, other than Richmond playing Auburn, I can't say that I'm really, really all that excited and enthusiastic about the schedule that Richmond has played. So I look at this as 2 teams that have kind of been disappointing. But I'm not at the point where I'm ready to lay 2.5 with Richmond. Yes, I'm concerned with Florida Gulf Coast on the road, 1 straight up win in 6 road games. But 2.5 or better, I'm leaning to the Eagles here of FGCU. I don't see enough in Richmond right now where I'm ready to lay with them on their home floor in this matchup against FGCU. I know they got the 3 wins, 3 of the 5 wins have been at home, but FGCU has also shown their ability to hang with Drake. I remember that game 63-61, going on the road there to the Knapp Center, and they ended up hanging right there, losing by 2 to a very solid Drake team. Drake's really good. Florida Gulf Coast was right in that game, lost by 2. Richmond ain't Drake, so 2.5 or better, C-Mac. I'm certainly leaning to the underdog here, FGCU. What do you think here?
Yeah, there's just problems here with Richmond. I don't want them all. When I look at this real quick on the total, I have to go over. I think it's a little bit light. Florida Gulf Coast kind of played the under early on. I think they've had 4 or 5 straight overs. And Richmond defensively has just gone to shit. I mean, when Bill and his bitch, as you like to say, VMI, I mean, they're dropping 90.
And I get that they play fast, William and Mary and Belmont, but still, you're getting ripped defensively. That's got nothing to do with possession.
Yeah. They're just getting, and a few of those games at home. I always struggle with me because we talk about this all the time every year. Is this a little bit short? They're the only play, though. I talk about the over, but Florida Gulf Coast, it's just a short number here, which I get. It's just when you take this number with a short number and these teams that just don't play the same on the road, even though they've kind of had some tight games. Yeah. Like we were talking about earlier, the Drake, the couple of 2-point game, a few of these FIU at FAU, the win by 2. So, yeah, it's them or nothing here to 2.5 and over.
Yeah, the over I think makes some sense. I agree. Like certainly from a Richmond standpoint, where I'd expect them to shoot a little bit better at home, but their defense, you're right, it's been concerning, and that's a fall off. Yep.
Especially the shots. The defense hasn't been there, but both these teams have been a little bit flaky in that side. But like if they are at a decent percent and we get free throws and stuff, it will. It will get over.
Yeah, I agree with that, no doubt. I do want to point out too one thing that's interesting here about this. Both of these teams are slow. Florida Gulf Coast has slowed things right down this year, and Richmond's
especially early. Yeah, they were like those first 5 games. I was a little shocked at the numbers. Yeah,
no doubt. But that's why the total is 138. Like we're not asking for a super shootout here. as long as we get good enough offense and we get Richmond's defensive struggles coming back into play, we can probably get over 138, even with the lack of pace and, both teams,
Yeah.
playing methodical here in this game. I still think there's a chance we could see enough points for that over. All right, our final game of our marquee game breakdowns. We've got Fresno State and UNLV. UNLV 15-point home favorites, 145 being the total here in this game. You look at Fresno State, and obviously, big changes for them. By the way, this Fresno State team, because this was a team that for many, many years was just, an eyesore offensively, I should say. Absolute struggles to put the ball in the basket consistently with this group, but suddenly complete change in philosophy, playing extremely fast this year under Vance Wahlberg, the new head coach. We've seen all of a sudden their tempo numbers go way up as well. As far as adjusted pace, we're talking fifth in the country now as far as adjusted tempo. So huge upgrade as far as how fast they're playing. Kevin Kruger, meanwhile, the son of the great Lon Kruger, of course, still the head coach of UNLV. They've actually slowed it down more and more the longer his tenure has gone on as head coach. So it's kind of a pace war here, where years ago it would have been the reverse. With these two teams, it would have been UNLV playing fast, Fresno playing slow. It's the reverse now. Fresno's speeding things up. UNLV is slowing things down. So who's going to win that matchup? It's going to be the question here as far as the pace goes. I think when you look at UNLV, certainly with their offensive end of the basketball court from them this year, they've had their issues. There's no doubt. Now they've played a pretty tough schedule. Mississippi State, Northwestern, Creighton, and obviously struggled to put the ball in the basket in all those games. Dayton, obviously, when they went on the road and they lost to the Flyers there. And even when they come back home, Pacific, they only scored 72 at home. Riverside in their last game, they only scored 63. So there's some real issues as far as this team has scoring right now. I kind of want to take Fresno over because I've been betting a lot of Fresno overs. But, there's even at home, UNLV against teams you'd think they could score on. It hasn't always been there for them on a consistent basis, and they've gone 8-3 to the under so far this season, UNLV. So becomes a bit of a tricky handicap. I will say this about Fresno. They got absolutely destroyed by BYU on the road, but they also hung in there against Santa Clara, covered on the away from home. Washington State lost by 11, barely covered, but did cover as 11.5-point dogs. They won outright against Long Beach State away from home. With the way UNLV's been trending, I feel like this is just a few too many points here, and I'm kind of interested in Fresno plus 15. Lean over, but like I said, UNLV is going to want to slow it down, and even some of the weaker teams they've played, they haven't obviously put up offensive masterpieces even against some of those teams. So I'm lukewarm on the over. I'll probably will end up on Fresno, though, plus 15. I mean, UNLV is not the kind of team I'm willing to really trust right now in this particular point spread range. CMAC, what do you think?
They're just not there yet. There's still problems here with this team clicking flat out. Like, I feel lucky that opening game against Alcorn, and they just covered. But till that, other than opening game, they went 10 straight without covering. They covered at Dayton finally, but that was like a 9 straight or something like that, 8 straight where they didn't cover a game with their favorite or dog. I thought they looked better. They are slowing it down. The defense has been good, but offensively they haven't got all this together. Whether it's Rishwain or Henley, Hill, these kind of guys are contributing, but I don't know. Read another kind of forward that's going to step up, because Thomas, of course, is the guy who plays basically the whole game, the great guard that they have, but he needs more help. And I just don't know if this Rebel team has it right now, and especially if you want to be laying this number. I thought the last two, the close loss to Dayton, which they kind of crumbled late, and then at least the cover against Riverside, but man, that was ugly, 66-53. So maybe they got to lean more on this defense. And Fresno is just very bad right now. But they want to play super fast. In years past, this was the dead under team, just fight to get to 60. It seems like, and they've had some okay games, like you talked about, and they've got obliterated and their ass kicked on the road. But I'd lean their way. There's just right now, until UNLV gets clicking a little bit, definitely a game I think they win, but laying 16, 15.5, 16. Not now. Not right now. Until maybe they get going. It's just a little bit too high. So I get it.
And to add a little fuel to the Fresno State fire, these two teams played each other twice last year. Obviously, they're conference foes in Mountain West. There was a 9-point game and a 2-point game last year.
Oh, these are always,
yeah.
By the way, well, I mean, for years. And that's why Fresno's somewhat down. But even the last 5 or 6 years, somewhat down, but better. But these games are tight, whether they're at Fresno or here. All the years I watched them, they come down to the wire. It seems like they're within a few possessions for sure.
Of the last 10 meetings, there was a 13-point Fresno win. And outside of that, every one of the last 10 meetings has been decided by 9 or less.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I mean, yeah, I think they gobble up the points. I kind of agree with you. This team's been that bad shooting it. Talk about this, Babano. 47%, which wasn't great, their last game. They don't shoot a ton of threes, but they hit 10 of 18, 56%. Then they go 5 of 12 from the line, 42%, and they still lose and don't cover that game against Baptist, 86-69. Like, I mean, you think if you hit 10 of 18 from 3 and you still lose by 17 points at home. I believe that game was.
Yep.
Right? Was that a neutral or that was home? That was a home game.
Fresno. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a home game for Fresno. Yeah, that was rough.
Save Mart Center, of course. That's definitely Fresno's gym. That's been called that for years. Yeah.
The dynamic's so weird though. It's like, that's just not a good sign when I was going through that earlier today. No. The numbers, yeah.
It's not. No, it's not. I mean, Fresno is no great shakes either. I just feel, given series history and UNLV's consistency issues, offensively especially, that
they're just not clicking right now. They're looking better. Like the whole Riverside and the tight close game to Dayton, I think was great. And maybe they're going to have to be that team, that slow it down and grind it out because they just don't kind of have the offensive guys other than Thomas right now.
Yep, it's quite possible, but you're right. Work in progress is the best way to describe it right now with UNLV. All right, any games that we did not talk about for Saturday, C-Mac, that you're interested in, that you're eyeing? Anything you got?
No, I think we nailed it. I think we're good. There wasn't nothing crazy. Portland at home, because we have such a short card.
It is short.
There wasn't really anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is not your normal Saturday card. That'll be next week. It'll be back to like 150 games next week.
Yeah, back to. Yeah, I kind of look at Mount St. Mary's, the 15. George Mason's usually just better at home. But I've been surprised by the scoring of Mount St. Mary's. That was kind of a look there, I think they're catching 15 tomorrow. But that was it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mount St. Mary's is, like I said, these teams that maybe don't start well and then they start to show signs of turning a corner. It's starting to look like Mount St. Mary's might be one of those teams, that just they didn't start the season, playing their absolute best, but now all of a sudden look out and look, they are 8-3 against the spread, but the eyebrow raiser was the Miami game. And I know Miami just saw Jimmy Larinaga step down. Maybe that's what forced him out. He's like, we can't be losing to fucking Mount St. Mary's.
I think he was.
And I think that was the sign that I got to get the hell out of here and enjoy. Why am I still here? I got to enjoy my retirement. Why am I still standing here on the sideline coaching this program and watching them lose to Mount St. Mary's at home as 16.5-point favorites? That was enough to say, get me out of here.
See ya.
See ya, exactly. And that obviously was the big news earlier today with Jim Larinaga immediate retirement here from his post as head coach of the Miami Hurricanes. But no, they've been undervalued. I like that they beat Howard outright. They had one bad game against Georgetown, but outside of that, it's been a very feisty group. And I think you're right. I think the points are worth a look there because that was on my short list as well of games I'd be interested in. Mercer, Georgia State over. I'm interested in. I think that could be one of those games where you see it maybe be a little bit competitive, over the total. Delaware, I'm kind of tempted by Delaware plus 25 against St. John's. It's kind of a sleepy spot for the Red Storm. I know obviously they have a huge talent advantage, but Delaware getting 25, I'm kind of interested there in that. Elon is taking money against Marshall. I don't disagree. Marshall's not always a team on the road that you can rely on. So Elon laying 5 against Marshall. I agree
Can
with
they
that.
keep? I get it, but can Elon? It's stretching out, but they've been that good and that good at home. I've had them like pick them closer numbers, and they've taken care of business.
Yeah.
So that's you're starting to see that inch out now, 5.5. But they've been that good, especially at home. So shout out to Elon.
They have been. I think Eastern Kentucky, Louisville, combination of over 155 and maybe Eastern Kentucky plus 19. As much as I think Louisville's really, Pat Kelsey, we've already seen some bright signs with this program. Asking them to lay 19 is still I'm not quite there yet, asking Louisville to be huge favorites. So maybe make a case there for Eastern Kentucky as well. Yeah, that's about it for me. We'll get into best bets now for this, and obviously it'll be one of the games on Saturday. CMAC, we'll go to you. What do you like for best bet from the Saturday slate?
Yeah, I was going to look Wyoming, but let's go to a total here. I'll go to a total. You can get it now, and that's the number I wanted. The 145 under Utah State, San Diego State, defensive battle, under 145. Bring it.
There you go. Utah State, San Diego State, under 145 for CMAC. His best bet here for this Saturday college basketball card. Best bet for me. We're going to, there's a lot of good choices. There's a 4.5 out there at the Las Vegas Superbook. There's a 4.5 and a couple books, 4s elsewhere, but shop around. There are a couple 4.5s. We're going to take UCLA and the 4.5 against Gonzaga. Right. I like the spot off a loss. I definitely think Gonzaga probably a better team, but the UCLA has been, like I said, they only lost by 2 to North Carolina, and that was obviously a long trip to the East Coast for them. Now you get them here in LA. Certainly it's going to be a lot of Gonzaga fans too, but still situational's good for UCLA. Off the loss, catching points. It's the role I like them in. I'll take UCLA here. Plus 4.5 against Gonzaga. We'll go to the big game on Saturday for my best bet.
Yeah.
Fresno was
there's 4.5s too. Yeah, there's 4.5s plenty everywhere. So grab it.
No doubt. Yeah, UCLA plus 4.5 for me. Best bet as well. And Fresno State honorable mention because I do think that's a good side to look at too. Fresno getting plus 15 or more against UNLV. And the total I like the most, if I just use a total for a best bet, it probably would have been that Colorado State, New Mexico over. I do like that one in Mountain West Play. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. And a reminder, we're going to have next week, we'll only have the Friday show. That's our only Hitting the Book show next week in either sport is going to be next Friday. We'll do college basketball and preview the big Saturday slate. And then the following week, we'll obviously have college football on Monday, January 6th, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. But that's also the week we will expand to multiple shows per week with the college basketball. We'll do 2, 3, maybe even 4 shows a week because we'll definitely be on Friday every week. And we'll probably add a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday combination because those are always the days with a lot of games. So we might even go 3-4 days a week starting on the week of the January 6th in the new year. So stay tuned for all the details with that. But looking forward to it. Our next show, like I said, next Friday, January 3rd, back to the usual time, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, next Friday for Hitting the Book. CMAC, anything you want to add before we say goodbye?
No, I think that's it. It's Friday. Tomorrow, big Saturday.
Yep.
That is it, my friend.
Tons of bowl games too, and watch all those bowl videos. I've posted all of them for today. I'm going to post the Saturday college football bowl preview videos that Connor and I did for Hitting the Books as well prior to the games tomorrow. Huge weekend of bowl games tonight and tomorrow. And, of course, we got more on Monday and Tuesday. Playoffs back in action Tuesday, and then 3 of them playoff games on Wednesday, so New Year's Day. So, again, check out all our college football Hitting the Books content and every single bowl game previewed up on the channel, the Hitting the Books channel. So make sure you check that out, as well as every playoff game. And again, January 6th, we'll be doing just the semifinals. It'll be a short show January 6th, and then January 13th will be the national championship show, our final college football Hitting the Books for the season. So that's the schedule and the way it goes from here on out. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Justin McKelvey, Old E, Cheshire Cat, Timothy Hake, everyone that tuned in. hit the like button on the way out. For Connor, Mac, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we'll see you again next Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, for another edition of the College Basketball Hitting the Books show. Until then, class dismissed.